Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Linda Shell, and I've been tasked with introducing the next presenter. But before we do that, why don't we stand up for about 30 seconds and kind of shake it off? Okay? All right. All right. All right. Our next presenter is Regina Montgomery. Okay, we want to have a seat? Thank you. Our next presenter is Regina Montgomery, and Ms. Montgomery has a Master of Social Work and has worked with the federal government for 16 years. She currently serves as the Regional Relocation Specialist for Region 4 within the Office of Community Planning and Development. Her areas of responsibility includes the great states of Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Tennessee, Kentucky, Mississippi, Alabama, and Florida. She holds dear to a quote by Margaret Mead that says, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world." Ms. Montgomery believes in those words and has cultivated a passion to advocate on behalf of people who deserve to have their voices heard. When not working, she loves spending time with her family, reading, and engaging in different forms of art and crafts. We ask that you please hold your questions to the end of her presentation. I would like to present to you Miss Regina Montgomery.
Hi, Bill. I'm glad I caught you in your office. The boss has just informed me that our agency is receiving a HUD grant to assist us in rehabilitating that old apartment building on First Street for an affordable housing development. It looks like I'm the one who will be handling the project. He mentioned something about the URA and our need to develop a relocation plan for the project, and then he suggested I talk to you. Can you help me?
Well, it has been a year or two since I worked on a project like this under the URA. In fact, I did a presentation about it for our board of directors a while back. Let me find that presentation, and it'll help me to walk you through what the law generally requires. Sure, here it is. My presentation on the Uniform Relocation Assistance and Real Property Acquisition Policies Act of 1970. The title's long, but most people just call it the Uniform Act, or URA for short.
So, how did a law like that come into being?
A good question. It seems that Congress wanted to establish uniformity among federal agencies and their funding recipients when acquiring real property and relocating persons for federally funded projects. Thus the name Uniform Act. A key objective of the URA is fair and equitable treatment of those who are impacted by the project. The URA rules generally apply whether it's a federal agency buying the property or a local agency like ours using federal funds for acquisition, rehabilitation, or demolition activities. If there's federal money in the project, then the URA likely applies, although there are some limited exceptions. And one important thing to keep in mind is that even if the federal funds are not used specifically to fund these activities, the URA rules may still apply.
Oh, so that would include a lot of projects and potentially a lot of situations.
Yes, I think that might have been the intent of Congress when they passed the law. And it goes beyond just affecting how you buy property. It also provides relocation assistance and payments to people who must move permanently or temporarily because of the project. This includes owners, tenants, and businesses. This provision was intended to lessen the project's impact on existing occupants. It assures that they'll receive fair and equitable treatment.
This is great, Bill, but I need to take some notes. So, the URA is more properly referred to as the Uniform Relocation Assistance and Real Property Acquisition Policies Act of 1970, as amended. It was intended to encourage amicable agreement with owners for the purchase of property and assure that owners and occupants are well informed throughout the process. I think you mentioned fairness and consistency as being important. And lastly, the URA seeks to provide uniform, fair, and equitable treatment, as well as avoid disproportionate impacts to people who must be moved because of the project. It accomplishes this through written notices, advisory services, and payments.
You have the key points, but I'll add a few more clarifications for your notes. Like most laws, this one has been amended several times. The most recent amendment was in 2012. And keep in mind that the URA has specific requirements based on whether an acquisition is involuntary, under the threat or use of eminent domain, or voluntary. Some of those requirements include a need for unbiased appraisals, a review of those appraisals, written offers, and negotiations in good faith. There's a lot more you need to know about before getting started. Relocation assistance includes advisory services and reimbursement for the costs of moving personal property for owners, tenants, and businesses. Persons displaced from their dwelling are also assured that replacement housing is available through replacement housing payments. And don't forget, the URA has different requirements if someone must move temporarily for a project and will be able to move back.
Well, what type of projects would typically require our agency to follow the URA?
First, remember we said that generally, acquisition, rehabilitation, or demolition for a federally funded project requires us to follow the URA. There's a long list of URA projects we have completed, but it includes our recent CDBG-funded water and sewer line improvement project, the home-funded first-time homebuyer assistance program, and the home-funded acquisition and demolition of the old motel on 2nd Ave for new construction of affordable housing. Although our office doesn't handle all the city's HUD-funded projects, other projects could be covered, for instance by the Metro Public Housing Authority. Keep in mind, if there's a need to buy real estate or relocate people for a federally funded project, it's likely the URA applies. And our local HUD Regional Relocation Specialist is available to help us if we need it.
You know, Bill, I am looking forward to learning more about the URA. It seems like a good law that protects people, and that's important. It sounds challenging, and I am up for the responsibility of project oversight.
Wasn't that exciting? Did you learn a lot? Well, my name is Regina Montgomery, and as stated, I am the Regional Relocation Specialist. I work with Department of Housing and Urban Development, also known as HUD, and basically I work on URA matters for the department. Oh, are you controlling it? Oh, B? Okay, here's my contact information. So if you have any questions related to the URA, if you're not really sure, if you are engaging in any type of project that is funded with federal funds, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I love interacting, answering questions, because I really want people to be clear on how URA is triggered, when it's triggered, and what protections are allotted to people who are impacted by a federally funded project. Okay, now you've heard a lot in the video. Basically, the URA stands for Uniform Relocation Assistance, Real Property Acquisition Policies Act of 1970. I know it's a mouthful, but it's a very great act to protect people. It basically establishes minimum standards for federally funded programs and projects requiring acquisition of real property or the displacement of persons from their homes, businesses, or farms. I know I'm repeating what the video has stated, but it applies only in situations where federal funds are anticipated or if you're receiving federal financial assistance involving 3 activities: an acquisition, rehabilitation, or demolition project. That is the only way URA will apply. And you have certain protections when it does apply. So as a tenant, you have certain protections. If you are going to be permanently displaced from your home as a displaced person, you're entitled to you have every right to be notified in a timely manner when a project is proposed and selected for an acquisition, rehab, or demolition project. You're entitled to receive the necessary advisory services to relocate successfully. Advisory services can be an example like home counseling services. That's a different type of advisory services that you can receive. And you're entitled to be reimbursed for moving and related costs. If you're a business tenant and you are required to move, you're entitled to payment to reestablish that business. As a tenant, you're entitled to receive rental assistance payment up to 42 months of assistance. And you have the right to appeal your eligibility for relocation assistance if it is denied, and or the amount of that assistance being offered to you. And we have an online training curriculum called URA the HUD Way. I encourage everyone to take it. And if you want to learn more about relocation, one specific module that addresses relocation assistance for those who are permanently displaced, please review Module 5 of our URA the HUD Way. It's a great training module, and I'll go into a little bit of detail at the end of my presentation on what that training curriculum is like. Okay, if you are required to move temporarily as a result of a federally funded project, you're entitled to receive or entitled that all the conditions of your temporary relocation must be reasonable. The temporary unit that you're moving to must be suitable and found to be decent, safe, and sanitary. You are also entitled to be reimbursed for any out-of-pocket expenses that you incur during that temporary relocation. That includes moving or any increased housing costs. As a tenant, you must be informed in advance of any rent increases or an offer of a different unit on the completed property. While you are temporarily relocated, that temporary relocation must be less than 12 months. If it exceeds 12 months, the agency must contact you and offer you permanent relocation assistance. And if you want to learn more, please go to our URA the HUD Way training curriculums, Module 7, and it'll go into a lot more detail than what I'm going through right now. Okay, this is, did I go back? Oh, sorry. Oh.
Big fat scissor button.
Okay, sorry. Okay, let's talk about tenant responsibilities if you're required to temporarily relocate. As a tenant, you must continue to pay your rent while you're temporarily relocated to avoid evictions. I know that was a big topic today. You must stay in communications with the agency at all times. Don't move without being properly advised in writing. If you're temporarily relocated, you must report housing conditions before moving without talking to the agency. And if you want to learn more, modules 5 and 7 of the URA HUD Way training curriculum will go into a lot more detail of what your rights and protections are. Let's discuss landlord responsibilities in the relocation process. Okay, if you're planning a project and tenants have to move, it is your responsibility to plan and budget every step early for staffing and other resources necessary to undertake acquisition and relocation activities. You need to know in advance who will be displaced, who will be temporarily relocated. You are required to issue at least 3 required URA notices in a timely manner. Failing to do so can be a very costly mistake because according to HUD, if it's not done right, it will be done over. You must provide the necessary advisory services the agency will offer. This is not an option, it is a requirement. And you also must identify available and suitable comparable replacement housing in advance of the relocation activities. To learn more, please view Module 3 of our URA, the HUD-Way training curriculum. Also, I'm sorry. Your project files must be documented in sufficient detail to demonstrate compliance. That includes the property acquisition and the project occupancy data. You must track and stay in communication with your tenants during the temporary relocation. And you can only evict tenants for serious lease violations, not for failure to move or cooperate with the construction schedule. If you are planning to conduct an acquisition project, it is important for you to know and plan which acquisition process you're going to take. That is very important because the rules change for each one of them. And if you are pursuing a particular property, you cannot take coercive action to get an owner to accept your price that he or she considers to be unacceptable. And if you want to learn more, we have modules 4 and 5 of our URA to HUD-Way training curriculum that goes into a little bit more detail. And basically, our URA training curriculum is online. It's very detailed, it's free, and you can pretty much take it at your own pace. So I encourage everyone to take it. I'm really trying to get the message out there to make sure that people understand what their rights and protections are if they are impacted by a federally funded project. But it's important for you to know what the requirements are as you are implementing these federal projects. HUD, we don't want to be viewed as causing anybody to become homeless. And so we have rules in place to protect tenants if they are going to be impacted by a federally funded project. So I think that concludes my presentation. Thank you.